Welcome back to the Champagne on Ice podcast presented by the Field of 68. Illinois finally snaps their miserable three-game losing streak and takes care of the Iowa Hawkeyes in Champaign to get back on track, 81-61, as we enter the final week of the regular season. And the next time we watch an Illinois basketball game, it will be the month of March. So that is pretty crazy. March has officially arrived. It'll be the last day of February when you're listening to this episode, and March is right around the corner, and at least Illinois has some life after that game on Tuesday heading into March, and now a huge one to start the month at Michigan on Sunday. We're going to preview that game as well as talk about this win over the Hawkeyes. I am Kyle Tausk, joined as always by Mike Farmer. And Mike, are you ready for March yet? Are you prepared?
So ready. Obviously, nationally with the tournaments and conference tournaments are starting on March 2nd on Sunday. That's unbelievable. And then, yeah, Illinois finally got back in the win column, stopped the bleeding. And in any game that's not a 43-point loss, it's a good game and gave Illinois a little bit of momentum heading into March. So, yeah, I'm as ready as ever.
Yeah, Illinois swung the point differential by 63 points in two games after the 20-point win. It definitely just stopped the bleeding, and like we talked about last time, just showed that there's still some life left. I thought Illinois came out in this Iowa game and played with the proper urgency, and that this game, as we talked about last time, could have been the difference between missing the NCAA tournament, completely collapsing, or at the very least keeping yourself afloat, and it should all but punch Illinois' ticket to the NCAA tournament, regardless of what happens the rest of the year, which should not be overlooked as well. It'll be the fifth straight year, should have been sixth straight year if COVID didn't cancel a tournament, that Illinois will make the NCAA tournament after that win over Iowa. But most importantly, Illinois stops a three-game losing skid and showed some things in this game. Obviously, I think both of us will agree, unless you come on here and completely flip your tune. I don't think this just completely solved Illinois and they're all fixed and ready to make a Final Four run again. Certainly you need to do it more than once and against a team that is not on the bubble of the Big Ten tournament. But nevertheless, a nice victory for Illinois, a feel-good win, one that Illinois controlled through the entire game, dominated, played how you should play against a team like Iowa, guarded their butt off. Best defensive performance we've seen from Illinois definitely in the last month, maybe in the last month and a half in that game, which we can talk about, and some real life shown by this team. Definitely not a team that has quit or given up. So that was good to see. What were your thoughts on this win?
Yeah, definitely doesn't completely change my season outlook, as you said. I'm not going to be sharpieing this team into a Sweet 16 or anything. But also, as you said, it's encouraging. It's good to see a team that it has some veterans and was playing at home court finally and didn't give up, which we talked about for a while in the last episode. I was pretty negative about it. I mean, I stand by that, but this was obviously phenomenal to see. It's a team that, like, as Brad Underwood said after the game, we're done with the excuses. We're done with talking about illnesses and injuries. We're just going to put our foot down on a team that's, worse than us. We're going to defend home court and get a 20-point win over, in a spot that Illinois just desperately needed to win in. So, yeah, great to see. As you mentioned, defensively, one of their best performances since the start of the new year, pretty easily. Peyton Sandfort, Iowa's best player, never really got going, and Iowa just really didn't have much. And a lot of that belongs to Iowa just being down a couple guys and just not having the best roster and season and team overall this season. But Illinois also forced a ton of turnovers, did some really encouraging things defensively that Underwood said, we had to make some changes, and we finally did that in the couple of days prior to the game. So he was really proud of what he saw defensively. And then offensively, I mean, anything's better than 2 for 26 against Duke. So 9 for 29, still not perfect, obviously. You're not really in that range you want to be in, but a major step up from what we saw against Duke and what we've seen in other disastrous offensive games this year. Individually, I thought Tommy was phenomenal. Broke 20 points, had 5 assists, no turnovers. Was finding cutters here and there and just, hit a couple deep threes and was really what Illinois needed from him. And then the rest of the team, like Illinois kind of shortened the rotation a little bit. They had four guys play over 33 minutes in this game, which was pretty surprising. And yeah, just really a solid performance overall and just exactly what you needed to see from Illinois.
Yeah, I want to talk about a lot of that stuff, but I think defensively is what stood out the most to me and what I think I was most encouraged by, because not only did this team actually show a different edge and a different level of effort on the defensive end and just individuals stepping up and guarding a lot better than we've seen for the last month. But also, like you said, Brad Underwood and his coaching staff made a few little scheme tweaks defensively, which I think was extremely needed here heading into the end of the season, because we've seen Illinois get picked apart here recently, and we've seen that deep drop coverage that they've sat in all season long with Tommy and Merez when he's been healthy really start to get exploited here. You get this deep into the season and you're so singular defensively. You do one thing and pretty much one thing only on the defensive end. And I think teams just got really comfortable playing against Illinois. And Illinois' perimeter defenders, Boswell in particular, who continues to be, I mean, here recently he's looked like his former self defensively in some of these matchups. I mean, he was spectacular on Peyton Sandford, guarded Cooper Flagg relatively well in that Duke game, and he's looked a lot better here recently. But just Illinois' perimeter defenders, we're just put in such bad positions at times with that drop coverage where guys were just getting hung up on screens. Ball handlers had free runs to the rim because Illinois just wasn't executing that well, and also it had just been scouted so well at this point. I think that teams got so comfortable playing Illinois, and they knew they were only going to see one thing. And Illinois played a lot of really good ball handlers, really good scorers who could come off those screens and hit mid-range jump shots, attack the bucket. I just think you needed to see a little bit of a change on the defensive end. So I liked seeing that little soft hedge that they threw in with Tomislav, where he would kind of stab towards the ball handler and recover and give Kylan Boswell, give Kasparis Yakachonis, give Will Riley time to recover, stay in front of those ball handlers, particularly in a matchup like Iowa, which I think was the perfect matchup to throw that little wrinkle in there, because you have Josh Dix, who's such a good mid-range jump shooter, and Peyton Sandford, who comes off those screens and hits that 15-footer in his sleep. Like, those are layups for these guys. And if Illinois was just going to sit in their deep drop coverage all night against Iowa, I was going to get really concerned that matchup was going to feed right into what Iowa wanted to do. And I think that's what led to a lot of the turnovers that Illinois forced. Their highest turnover forcing game of the season with 16 is because Iowa was prepared to see the same Illinois defense that they've watched on film for the entire year so far. And when they didn't see that, when they saw Tommy show towards a ball handler, and when they saw something different for once and just a little bit more help even off the ball, which is something that Kylan Boswell talked about, just more gap help, a little bit more aggressiveness helping off those corners. I think Iowa was thrown off a little bit. Those ball handlers had some indecision, threw it away a couple times, had some really bad-looking turnovers. Illinois has been such a, just non-factor in terms of turning the ball over defensively. That's how they've been designed. And that's not to say that that's going to change all of a sudden, but I think that had part to do with it. But I just liked seeing that adjustment, because I think Illinois had gotten so stale on the defensive end, and it was so bad the way they were playing. We talked about the numbers last time, like in the 220s, that to just sit there and continue to go out the way Illinois was going out, I think that's where you could have lost a game like this and could have really spiraled towards the end of the season if you were going to guard that poorly. So a combination of some of the adjustments we saw, but also just better individual performances defensively, I think I'm most encouraged by, because that's something that Illinois needed to get a lot better at down the stretch of the season to have any chance of making any noise. And Iowa, I don't think is all that great, but I think some of the stuff there is repeatable, and I like seeing a little new wrinkle thrown in there, that Illinois is not just going to be the same deep drop defense all season long.
Yeah, no, this was the perfect game to implement some changes because you're not super worried about Iowa's front court killing you, like Dembele and those other guys,
Yeah.
not crazy threats in the paint or anything. And then, as you said, Dix and Sandford, that's where they live. And they're really the past, like, I guess the past three games, the losing streak Illinois was on, they ran into a lot of guys like that. Blackwell from Wisconsin. I mean, Duke abused everything. And then Michigan State has, I mean, their entire roster, especially their guards, thrives in the mid-range. Holloman, Fears, Akins even. And Illinois just got picked apart. Like, as you said, guys are coming off screens and trailing. Trey Holloman has that shot. He's shooting 85% on that. And that's why Illinois ends up losing by double digits at home to Michigan State. Gets just picked apart in Madison. And then, yeah, as I said, Duke had everything against them. So, yeah, much needed switch up defensively. It'll be interesting to see if that's like, if Illinois does commit to that against a much better team in Michigan and Purdue upcoming, and then in the Big Ten tournament and after that as well. But then also, yeah, just like guys like Kylan Boswell, it's maybe your last home or second to last home game in Champaign this year. Just come out and guard guys. It's not a perfect matchup for you against Sanford, who's got 5 or 6 inches on you probably. It's not the best matchups for KJ against Josh Dix, who's an interesting player. He can, get shots from a couple different spots. Doesn't matter. Like, you're the better team. Come out and just show some effort. Hustle your ass off. Go and grab loose balls, turn those into turnovers, and go for fast breaks and extend the lead that Illinois had. And we saw a bit of that, which was super encouraging. And then back to offensively, like I just thought I love seeing them play through Tommy. Obviously, they had was it Dembele on him, who's got
Yeah.
Tommy's got 5 or 6 inches on him. You're not going to get that matchup against Vlad Golden and Danny Wolf in Illinois' next game. But still, like, you had to see Illinois just put your foot down, come out and win by 20. Obviously, I did not expect that at all. You did expect that. Illinois
I
fan
didn't
base was
expect
pretty,
it by 20. I
yeah,
expected
not
a
by
win,
20,
not by
but
20.
okay, yeah. But yeah, the fan base was pretty mixed, and it was just really encouraging to see that finally. Because as we talked about, this might be the last game you're favored in, unless you get a decent matchup in the Big Ten tournament. This might be the last game that you have a seriously good chance to win, to bolster your March resume and kind of clinch up that your first round appearance in the NCAA tournament. And yeah, Illinois did that. So as I said earlier, not really changing my outlook on the season, but definitely a game you needed to see from Illinois.
Yeah, I thought Tommy was spectacular in this game. He looked finally somewhat healthy again. It looked like a guy who had actually been in practice a little bit and just maybe all the illness, and it looked like he was moving even better than I saw during that Duke game, where I thought he just was just a little winded at times in that game, got pushed around, and also I thought his mobility wasn't great there. It just looked like he was finally at least closer to fully healthy, and it was a great matchup for him because, yeah, Owen Freeman's out for Iowa. That front court is really thin for the Hawkeyes, and I really like the fact that 2 of Illinois' first 3 possessions were pick and rolls with Tommy. Tommy wasn't popping out playing on the perimeter. They rolled Tommy off those ball screens. He got fouled on a dunk and then had a shot in the paint that he was able to get to and just shoot over Dembele, which I thought you needed to pound it inside. We talked about how terrible Iowa's 2-point defense was. That's why I thought Illinois would win the game, even as much dismay they were in. I thought they could score at will against Iowa. They actually didn't have a great offensive performance. I thought there were times in the game where they attacked, and I thought Boswell had a great game driving it and putting pressure on the rim, which you needed to see. I thought Illinois still got a little bit stagnant and a little bit 3 happy at times in the second half in this game. But you guarded so well that you still blew out this Iowa team, even though I don't think they had the offensive domination that I would have thought. But Tommy was a huge reason that Illinois was able to pull away in this game. Not only just his ability to score, hit a couple mid-range jumpers when Iowa went to a zone, which is always going to be a huge weapon that Illinois got to go to if any team zones them the rest of the year, which I don't think would be a bad idea against this Illinois team. For any team that practices a 2-3 zone at all, or any type of zone really, I'd probably throw it in there against this Illinois team. I thought Iowa might because they've done that in the past. They really didn't do it a ton because when they went to it early in the first half, Tommy would flash to the middle and he'd bury a mid-range jumper in their face. And that's a very easy zone beater for Illinois when you have a big that can flash to that middle part of the zone and just knock a shot down. And he hit a couple of those right in a row. And so Fran pulled the zone off and Illinois went back to work. It was, he's so important in so many areas. When you have a big that can hit shots like he can, but can also pass it like he can. In the second half, he had 3 assists in the first 4 minutes to pull Illinois back out to a double-digit lead after Iowa was in striking distance on guys just cutting to the rim. When Tommy's got the ball in the high post or at the top of the key, it is a cheat code to have guys like Kylan or Trey or Will cut to the rim, and Tommy just delivers the ball where it needs to go. If you get any step on a guy or if you catch a guy one step off you, that's a play that Illinois can just spam because Tommy's such a good passer with such great vision and instincts. He is such an important player, even more so now, obviously, that you're missing Merez. But even looking into next year, like I'd do anything possible to make sure that that guy comes back and plays another year for you because he is just the ultimate matchup issue, especially in this game. And yeah, he was pretty awesome. And in general, I thought it was a good offensive performance from Illinois. Still go 9 of 29 from three. I'd take that every night. If you could sign me up the rest of the year, just shoot 31% from three every night, I think I'd just sign up for it and say, okay, I'll take that just to avoid the 18% nights that we've seen. But they guarded well enough to make this a blowout.
Yeah, that's a sad place to be in, begging for 31%,
Yeah.
but I am kind of with you, to be honest. Yeah, but like the thing, obviously we've said it, beneficial matchup for Tommy, but the thing with playing through Tommy is takes pressure off KJ, takes pressure off Boswell. Will Riley's still going to have the ball in his hands a pretty good amount because Tommy's distributing and finding cutters. I think Will had a good cut. Kylan had a couple cuts. And then, yeah, at the start of the game, Tommy gets a couple looks right away. And then later in the game, he gets the mid ranges and he still finds his 3-point shots. Like he's just so versatile. The matchup was really bad with Iowa. I've said that a couple times, but like he still found ways to get involved from all three levels of the floor offensively, and then 5 assists and no turnovers as well. Like that's, as you said, that's a guy you need back next year. Having that two big lineup with him and Merez potentially for a second year, that's terrifying for opposing Big Ten teams. But yeah, we talked, was it last episode or a couple episodes ago about, taking some pressure off KJ and having the ball in other guys' hands like Will and Tommy if they're finally healthy and, playing to their potential. And that's kind of what we saw against Iowa. And it still wasn't, as you said, their best offensive night. But KJ was better than he's been, recently in the past couple weeks for the most part. Played off the ball a little bit and just really he just kind of looked different. He's hyping the crowd up. He's not as focused on not having 6 turnovers a game because the ball's not in his hands as much. He's doing some things differently as other guys kind of take control of the offense. And yeah, I thought he played well. I thought it was just a really solid game from everybody else offensively, besides Tommy, because he was the best by far. Shortened the rotation a little bit. Will Riley still did his thing. Ben Hummerkaus came off the bench finally and was good in his 10 minutes, 10 or 11 minutes, I want to say. Only took a couple shots and he knocked him down. It's kind of what people have been calling for a little bit. And I think the change was long overdue. But if we see it now and it continues to pay off, we'll take it. The stretch the past couple months was pretty brutal. And Hummerkaus was part of that at times. But, if you can he's not going to go 2 for 2 or 3 for 3 every night. But if you can get 8 to 12 solid minutes from Hummerkaus off the bench, maybe more some nights if he's on, yeah, I'll sign up for that together with the 9 for 39, 9 for 29, the 31% 3-point shooting. I think it was just Illinois was due to have some changes schematically, defensively with the drop and, guarding screens differently. And then offensively, you just had to switch something up because they still didn't shoot well, but the product was just much better offensively. Part of that was the turnovers they forced and Iowa just not being great, but it's just something you had to see.
Yeah, that's a great point about KJ because that's something I did notice in this game is that he really wasn't involved as kind of the primary creator offensively as much as we've seen. They did take some things off his shoulders. Kylan Boswell handled the ball more than we've seen in a while in terms of just initiating, and then we saw obviously them play through Tommy a lot more too. One thing that really stood out to me because I can't remember the last time I've seen it is KJ got a wide open catch and shoot 3 and made it in this game off a Kylan Boswell drive and kick. I haven't seen him get a open catch and shoot 3 maybe
Never.
all year. I don't know if I can remember one time he's gotten one. And sure enough, he makes that shot. And again, it's not saying, okay, now KJ's going to play exclusively off the ball. That's a disservice to his talent. You still want him involved as much as possible, but it doesn't need to be every play. It doesn't need to be every time down the floor for 37 minutes because you have the other guys. You have the other playmakers. I mean, that starting lineup, now that Will Riley's in it, you've got 4 guys that have shown this year in different games that they can be high-level playmakers, high-level decision makers with the ball in their hands. Now, they've all struggled at times too, but with KJ, Kylan, Will, and Tommy all in your starting lineup now, it doesn't have to be KJ every time down. You're not a team that has one playmaker on the roster and you have to run everything through him. That's not how Illinois is built. And I think it just is a benefit to KJ to just take some of that load off of him, play him off the ball at times, maybe get him some easy looks generated for him, as opposed to him having to create every single one of his shots and points himself. And I also think it probably had an effect on him defensively. I thought he was really good defensively in this game on Josh Dix, and he struggled at times this year on that end. I think not having so much load on him on the offensive side probably impacted that a little bit. He's still going to be a guy that has the ball in his hands a ton. He's still the guy I'd want the ball in the hands of in a tie game with a minute left for Illinois, unquestionably. But I'm glad you pointed that out because I did think we saw him just a little bit less directly involved in certain possessions in this game, which he had a quieter stat line, but I don't think he played poorly. I thought he played well. He just didn't have as much of a load on him, so he didn't rack up the numbers, but he also didn't rack up the turnovers and played pretty well defensively. That starting lineup change, though, I do want to talk about that real quick because it's felt like a long time coming to finally get Will Riley in the lineup. Like we've mentioned it multiple times. I've kind of brushed it off and been like, whatever. At the same time, I did enjoy seeing it happen. I enjoyed seeing one of the best players on this team finally start. And for a guy that just hadn't been giving you much, I think it was time for Benham Rickhouse's role to be reduced. It's been about time for that, I think. And I think that benefits everybody. And you saw it benefit him, too, because like you said, he came in and he wasn't very good in his first stint, but then in the second half made 2 threes. I thought he was pretty good defensively in this game, caused a couple steals. I think he had 3 steals total. And just to get Will out there, who I think just continues to play really well for this team and be impactful, even though he wasn't making threes in this game. I thought he was active off the ball, had a couple cuts where he was able to score, continue to drive it efficiently. And I think you need your top 3 guys to start in KJ, Will, and Tommy and play a heck of a lot of minutes. Those are your top 3. You ride with those guys. I think Kylan has shown defensively he's extremely valuable, should play a lot. And then you mix in guys here and there. I don't necessarily think Trey White is a guy you have to have on the floor a ton. If he starts the rest of the year, that's fine. But I think you mix in some Rickhouse, you mix in some DGL, little Jake Davis. When Merez comes back, I think he should start again, and that'll be your lineup. And I like that change. I think just like the defensive adjustments, I think it was about time to make that change as well.
Is Merez coming back? Do you think he's going to be healthy by
I think he'll
mid-March?
It sounds like Brad Underwood. I'm going based on what Brad Underwood said. I would have told you he's probably done for the year before I heard Brad Underwood say they expect him back by the Big Ten tournament. And so I'm just going by what he said. He said they're hoping to get Merez back by the Big Ten tournament. And so I'll take their word for it until I hear something differently. I would have been surprised if that was the case if you told me that a week ago, but it does look like, I mean, he had a bigger cast on at the Duke game, and then it was a much lighter cast for this game against Iowa when he was on the sideline. So maybe it was just a hairline fracture or a minor one that he can come back from. It would be about 4 weeks since the injury, that first game of the Big Ten tournament. So 4 to 6 weeks is usually what you see with broken wrists. I wouldn't put it out of the question.
Yeah, that would be more than welcome, having Merez back, because I'll get back to your starting lineup point in a second, but Illinois got out-rebounded by Iowa. That's part of the reason I'm not, like, it's the quality of opponent. I'm not super optimistic about Illinois' chances in the next couple games. And then you got out-rebounded and out-offensive rebound by an Iowa team that effectively doesn't have a front court. So the turnovers were great. I think the defensive scheme change was much needed, and I think a slightly better shooting night, and Tommy played really well. But like, there's still some signs that are just leading me to believe that Illinois is still kind of the team we saw for the past month, 2 months, and not the team we saw win by 20 points in this game. But on another note, the starting lineup, as you mentioned, I like it. I like Will Riley not coming off the bench anymore. I don't know if that was like his decision or Underwood's decision to just have like another playmaker coming off the bench in that second unit for most of the season. But yeah, I'm with you. I want to see him starting for the rest of the year. I like Kylan and KJ starting, obviously. I think Dre's better as a spark plug probably for the rest of the year. he had some stuff he dealt with, and I'm fine with him coming off the bench. And then obviously Tommy, and I think Trey White played really well in this Iowa game. Obviously, scoring wise, went 2 for 4 from three. It's not something you need from him every game, but that's obviously more than welcome. And yeah, I just think having your probably four best players in your starting lineups is smart. They all played over 33 minutes in this Iowa game, so you'll take that. And then you'll still take the Humrick House and Jake Davis and DGL spark plug minutes, just playing as role players off the bench. That's what this team needs in March as well, because there's still going to be off nights for Boswell. He's prone to kind of go ghost late in seasons and just really not show up in some games. Guess what? You have DGL coming off the bench most likely, and that's a guy that can kind of somewhat replicate what Kylan does to an extent. You got, if Trey White's struggling, you got Jake Davis off the bench, and then if Merez comes back, that's a whole nother story. But yeah, I like it. I like, as we talked about, the ability to have guys surrounding KJ, so KJ is not having his 5 turnovers because he has the ball in his hands for 60 possessions a game. I like, as we obviously what we saw from Tommy, kind of running the offense a little bit, and I just think it comes down to like simplifying it a little bit, having your best players play, having your best scorers play, having your best playmakers with the ball in their hands, and yeah, Illinois is going to need these guys to continue to contribute each and every night in their next couple games.
Yeah, the rebounding thing, yeah, that's a big concern right now. That's the one thing still coming out of this game that is alarming. Iowa is horrendous on the glass. They're the worst rebounding team in the Big Ten, one of the worst in the high major. They out-rebound you by 5 on your home floor in a game where they missed a lot more shots than you missed. That's a problem, and it's the 4th straight game that Illinois has gotten out-rebounded. They've gotten out-rebounded in every game since Merez has gone out, and they continue to be a disaster on the defensive glass. And yeah, that's something for sure that I think coming out of this game I still worry about, especially going into this next game and really just down the stretch. I mean, that was the one thing you could hang your hat on all season long if you were Illinois, with all the other struggles and the fluctuations offensively with the shooting. Defensively, it was, well, we're one of the best rebounding teams in the country. Still pretty good on the offensive glass here over this stretch, but on the defensive glass, it's been really rough. You're feeling the loss of Merez, but also losing one guy who early in the year didn't play a whole lot, and you were still an elite rebounding team. Shouldn't really be an excuse that you can, and I know Underwood won't use that as an excuse because he is a rebound guy. I mean, he's gets on guys if they're not rebounding, and I think that goes for a lot of guys. I thought the guards rebounded well in this game, but Tommy's got to be better on the glass. He has been really bad here recently. For as good as he played offensively, I thought he was terrible on the glass in this game. I think you need more from Trey White on the glass. He played well offensively. 2 rebounds just can't happen if he's going to start the rest of the year. He's just got to be better on the glass, and it can't just be KJ, Kylan, and Will as your leading rebounders. That's just not a formula for success. So that's one thing that needs to get fixed. Obviously, getting Merez back will help that immensely if you can get him back, but even if you don't have them, some of the numbers they put up here recently, you should be dominating Iowa on the glass. So that was still a little alarming for sure. Anything else from this game that stands out to you here? I feel like I had something else and now I forgot it. So it's usually how it goes.
Yeah, I don't really know. You needed to see it. It's a good win. Good to beat kind of a rival team and gain a little bit of momentum heading into your last 2 games. But yeah, just still some issues with the team, but encouraging at the same time.
Yeah, 8 of the last 9 Illinois beaten Iowa, so I'll take that always. And then it looks like Fran might be on the way out, based on what I've heard. That's probably it for him. So Illinois will send him off unless they meet in the Big Ten tournament, having beaten him 8 of 9 times. And he was as salty as ever in the post-game press conference. He said he wasn't going to answer a question, didn't want to get fined. So good classic Fran there in what might be his last moment at the State Farm Center. But like you said, yeah, I agree. Good to see. Needed to see the life still in this team. Needed to see that glimmer of hope still in this group and what they can be. I think the defense was a huge positive. is everything fixed? Is all right for Illinois? That remains to be seen, and you will see it over these next two games to close out the regular season. Go do it again before I get much confidence in this team's long-term upside still. But definitely had to have it, and punching your ticket to the tournament pretty much officially. I mean, for all intents and purposes, you lose 3 in a row to end the year, you still make the tournament, I think, after this win. It would have been in jeopardy if you lost this game. So always that to celebrate as well, even though if it's still a little bit of a disappointing overall season. Making tournaments is something Illinois didn't do very often for a while. So I'll still be happy just to have that off the back of this Illinois team. But let's talk about Illinois and Michigan on Sunday. The Michigan Wolverines currently second place in the Big Ten, half game behind Michigan State. Now, I will say we're recording this on Wednesday night. I won't have it uploaded until Thursday morning. Michigan plays a game right after we get off recording this against Rutgers at home. I'd imagine they'll win that game and be tied with Michigan State atop the Big Ten. But in case they get upset there, just know that we didn't know that before we started talking about them, just to throw that note in there. But as of right now, Michigan is, what are they, 13-3 in the Big Ten right now, half game back of Michigan State. They have won 7 of their last 8, with their only loss coming at home against Michigan State. Funny thing about them is they have been the close game magicians this entire season. The last time they won a game by more than 4 points was January 12th against Washington. They've won 8 games by 4 or less points since then. It's pretty remarkable what they've done. They haven't been a dominant team, but they have been a winning team. Dusty May has done a pretty remarkable job with them. They've been atop the conference all season long within that top 2 or 3. And this is going to be, frankly, in my opinion, a pretty horrendous matchup for Illinois. I think this is a terrible matchup for Illinois in a lot of ways. I'll just jump into them and then I'll turn it over to you. Number one, they got 2 7-footers in their starting lineup, and you're missing one of your bigs. And Danny Wolf is such a unique player. I mean, they put the ball in his hands. They run ball screens with him. He's their primary ball handler in a lot of actions. They run big on big pick and roll with Wolf and Golden. They're two big men. They're great on the offensive glass because whichever one of those guys isn't involved in the action is always crashing the glass, and they always have a size advantage on guys. They just create so many matchup problems in the front court. I think it's the best front court in the country, and Illinois is really thin in the front court right now. The one issue that Michigan's had all season long, turnovers. Illinois doesn't turn teams over at all. Now, maybe Illinois is starting to, maybe this new wrinkle they've thrown in defensively will confuse teams enough to maybe turn them over a little bit more. But I mean, in general, Illinois is one of the worst in the country at turning teams over. And in a lot of Michigan's losses, they have been disasters turning it over. I think that is a problem for Illinois. And I also think Illinois' struggles defensive rebounding of late is a huge problem against Michigan, who is a top 65 offensive rebounding team in the country and recently has been elite on the offensive glass. I think they had a 17 offensive rebound game here recently against somebody. I can't remember who it was. So they could have some real success there. I think this matchup's going to be tough for Illinois, but at the same time, Michigan has been in close games pretty much for a month and a half. So they haven't shown that they can just dominate teams. And that should at least give you some hope that Illinois should be right in this game.
I hope so, man. The weird thing about them winning close games is obviously they're terrible in terms of turnovers, bottom 25 in the country in offensive turnover percentage. And then they're not a good free throw shooting team. And like those are kind of things that matter in the last 4 minutes of the game. And they've just found ways to win every single one of them for the most part. So that's weird. But yeah, is this a game where you switch the starting lineup right away? Because if Illinois somehow starts cold offensively, which I mean could very well happen, and you have Will Riley or Trey White presumably on Danny Wolf, like I don't know what the matchup is going to be.
So I think Kylan Boswell is going to be guarding Danny Wolf. That's what I think Illinois is going to do. They put him on Cooper Flagg. I think they'll put him on Wolf. Is that going to go great? Could Michigan just take that to the post and dominate that? Probably could. But I think with the way that Michigan uses him on the perimeter a lot, I think you start your best perimeter defender on him and then adjust from there.
That's going to be, if that happens, that's going to be insane to see. Classic 10-inch height differential between your starting center and your starting point guard. Well, yeah, that kind of worries me a little bit for as good of a defender as Kylan is, because we saw, Cooper got doubled a little bit and found Sion James wide open for 4 threes in the first 2 minutes of the game. Michigan could probably replicate that with, Namari Burnett, Roddy Gale, some of those other guards who you're not terrified of, but they're still really solid role players on a team that's really good and going to be a top seed in March and maybe win the Big Ten. So yeah, as you said, you just don't love the matchup. This is a game I would, if I could trade Merez's first Big Ten tournament game appearance for this game, I would do that in a heartbeat, because this could be disastrous defensively with the rebounding, and then just like, even if you have Tommy guarding Vlad Golden, don't love that. Tommy's not the best low post defender. Vlad Golden is just elite offensively, especially low in the paint. He's one of the most efficient centers in the country in that regard. And then I said I wasn't terrified of the guards, but like they're good players, and they're going to hit shots if they're wide open, because Illinois might have to double here, double there, depending on matchups. And then like Will Cheddar comes off the bench and he can just bury threes on you. So it's a scary team. Don't love being on the road. Don't love being without Merez. Although, you get a little bit of, you're encouraged a little bit by the Iowa performance, but still not enough to probably to have me predict them winning this game. But, Michigan's kind of due for a loss. Just put up 49 points against Nebraska and came out with a win. Like, that's kind of been the story of their season, winning close games, winning games maybe you shouldn't be winning. So maybe they're due for a loss. Illinois is due for some three-point shooting luck, and Illinois could walk out of there with a win.
So here's the one thing that would give me a little bit of hope with the defensive matchup is that over the last month, in the month of February, not counting whatever they do tonight as we record this against Rutgers, Michigan's offense is 120th in the country in offensive efficiency, and they have shot the ball 28% from three, bottom 30 in the country, which makes me think Illinois could probably, at least at this point, now I think they have better shooters than that. They're overall on the season, they're not very bad shooting the ball. I think they're 35% on the year. So it's really been a month slump. And they do have, like, Trey Donaldson shot it well this year. Namari Burnett, if you give him open catch and shoot shots, I think is a guy that can burn you. But if you're going to put Kylan on Wolf, which I just think that's going to happen, because that's what Illinois shown, that, they're just going to put Kylan on the best perimeter guy that the other team has. And while Danny Wolf can definitely go to work on the inside, Michigan plays him like a point forward. And I think just to start the game, I mean, based on what else Illinois has, you're going to be giving up 7 inches or 6 inches to whoever, right? It's not like all of a sudden, well, we'll put Trey White on him. Oh, wait, we're still giving up, 5-6 inches there. I just think they're going to start Kylan on him. Now, the problem with that is, I think that can mitigate some of the big on big pick and roll stuff, because I think Kylan will be quick enough to hang with Wolf and take away some of his opportunity to come off that screen. But if you're Michigan, you probably just either clear out a side and let Wolf go to work with the height advantage, or you just post that up and you post him up on Kylan. Now Illinois would have to decide, do we want to come double Danny Wolf? I think Illinois probably can get away with that, at least to start the game, and force Michigan to hit some shots, since they've struggled to shoot it here recently, especially if Roddy Gale's going to be in the lineup. He's been a disaster from three. So unless he's completely spaced out on the weak side, far away from Wolf, I think you could bring his guy over to double team and try to force Roddy Gale to hit some threes. And maybe you can get away with that. Either way, though, I mean, let's face it, even if that has some success for Illinois, that's scary to be giving up 10 inches in a defensive matchup, or whatever the case may be. Maybe you put Kylan on Trey Donaldson, and you put, Trey White on Wolf. Either way, I think you're in some deep trouble there. I just think that's going to be so hard to do. If you had Merez there, I think it's a great matchup. I mean, you just counter the two bigs. If they run the big pick and roll, you just switch it with your two bigs. And I think you match up pretty well. I think you hold up on the glass. Without Merez in there, and knowing that even Tommy's not going to be able to play 40 minutes, he'll probably play a ton. But, those 5-6 minutes he's off the floor, boy, you're in deep trouble if you're playing your small lineup with Humrickhouse at the 5. I just think it's going to be really tough to hold those guys in check. But if you look at Michigan's offense, they haven't been very good here recently. They've shot it terribly. They've been very inefficient around the rim. It's really been those two bigs, and really Vlad Golden's been the only guy that's consistently given them offense. So Illinois will have to figure out what they want to do with him. Teams have doubled him a lot, and he's been turnover prone at times too. He's struggled to handle traps. Brad Underwood just doesn't do that, and Illinois doesn't really have the personnel to just straight trap him in the post. So it's just going to be a tough matchup. For Illinois, though, I mean, offensively, this Michigan defense has been pretty spectacular here for the last couple months. They're top 3 in defensive efficiency in the month of February. Golden is an elite rim protector. With size down there, they'll just sit in their deep drop all night long, and teams have really struggled to score in the paint. And Illinois, you might get some threes in this game, but that hasn't been a game plan that has gone Illinois' way much of this season. It feels like it's at some point Illinois probably has one of those just complete insanity shooting performances, but it would be great to have it here. It's about time, right? It's been a month now. I don't know. I'm not holding my breath on that.
Yeah, I saw a tweet the other day. I don't know if it was the past 5 games, past month, past 8 games, something like that. Illinois was number 1 in the country in net 2-point percentage, like their offensive 2-point percentage minus other teams' offensive 2-point percentage. And like 362nd in the country, and I think it was just 3-point percentage. That is like statistically just pretty much not possible. So I do think they are due at some point. This would be a nice game to have the 3-point explosion. Honestly, I would like to see it against Purdue too. I think we're so due for a win against Purdue. I would love to beat those guys. But yeah, with Michigan, like if you send a double at Vlad, maybe you get some turnovers. If you leave him alone, we saw what he did against us last year. That was probably the best game of his career up to that point. Just kind of abused us in the Garden. You send a double at Danny Wolf, and he's like the best big man passer I've seen. He's college Jokic. Like he just makes every play, every highlight play. Like I watch him for 2 minutes, and he'll make 2 highlight plays in that span. He's just incredibly fun to watch, and unbelievable player. Yeah, I guess you hope you maybe leave Roddy Gale open, who hasn't shot super well and hasn't really been anything special offensively. Make him make some plays. And then offensively, I just like our 3-point shooting is such an issue, and then going into the paint and going at 2 7-footers, just not ideal, especially with I guess we do have some good drivers, and Illinois took advantage of Iowa's really poor rim defense, but it's night and day. It's an incredibly huge difference in this one. So yeah, I'm not super encouraged about this game. I think you just got to hope for the Linsanity 3-point shooting night, which is possible because honestly they are due for as much as I think they're not a good 3-point shooting team, they are still due. So that's kind of what I'm hoping for.
I do think Illinois will have a pretty significant backcourt advantage in this game. As well as Trey Donaldson's played, I'd take Illinois' guards over Michigan's. They're a front court oriented team. Now Michigan's going to have a quite massive advantage in the front court, but I think Illinois in the backcourt has an advantage in this matchup, so your guards are going to have to show up. Love to see Kylan play with the same aggressiveness he played with offensively against Iowa. Illinois is just a totally different team when he puts his head down and gets to the rim, and I think he'll have opportunities to do it. And he's got a strength advantage on some of these guys that are going to be guarding him for Michigan, especially if they go into their bench or if they have Trey Donaldson on him. You're going to need to make some shots in this game. But the one thing that does give you optimism, like I said, is that Michigan has refused to blow teams out. I mean, they haven't blown a team out since Washington at home. What's to say they're going to beat Illinois by 18 points? Illinois might have something to say about that, just playing terribly and throwing up bricks for 3 and allowing Michigan to run away with the game. But Michigan has just squeaked by. Even when they've gotten bigger leads, they are a team that can blow them pretty fast because they just are, like you said, they turn it over and they don't shoot free throws all that well. Now, Illinois would have to force some turnovers here, which we'll see how sustainable the number against Iowa was. Sometimes Michigan just throws them to you, so you got to take advantage of those. They've had times where they just have some really bad ones. So you got to be ready to take advantage of those, get out and run, get some transition opportunities, which Illinois just hasn't done a whole lot this year. Michigan's the team that'll give you some of those. So you got to take advantage of them when they're there, and try to just stick in this game. Michigan definitely has proven a lot more late in close games about the ability to win them than Illinois has. So you're telling me this game comes down to the last couple possessions in Ann Arbor with two teams, one that has found a bunch of different ways to lose games and one that seems to win every game close. Probably lean towards the latter team, but nevertheless, we'll see, and we'll see how much momentum Illinois really created in that Iowa game. If you go beat Michigan here on the road, which to me would be your best win of the entire season so far, well, you could argue that with Missouri, Wisconsin. I think at Michigan, who's currently possibly tied for first in the Big Ten heading into this game, I think that'd be your best win, and that would really start to make you continue to ride the roller coaster of, boy, maybe this team really is dangerous, but they'd have to do that first. I just think the matchup's going to be tough. I'll let you start with the score prediction.
God, part of me wants to predict a win just because I am convinced the 3-point luck takes a bit of a turn. Maybe it's this game, maybe it doesn't happen, maybe it's in the Big Ten tournament, whatever. I kind of want to see Will Riley. Not that I don't love KJ on the ball. Obviously, we've seen him dominate games here and there, but I want to see Will take advantage of some things because I think it's not like a great matchup for anybody, but I do think they don't. I don't think Michigan has a perfect matchup for him defensively because it's either like 6'4" Roddy Gale or just like Will Cheddar or somebody coming off the bench that's like 6'9", 6'10". So I'd like to see him maybe take advantage of some mid-range stuff and like take Golden and Wolf away from the rim a little bit, get some guys open looks because he's been a good passer recently. Riley has. But like I gotta trust my gut. I don't think Illinois wins this one with everything stacked up against them and with the way they've played overall the past 2 months. So I'll go Michigan 71, Illinois 64. I think Illinois keeps it close, as Michigan has let teams do recently, but Michigan still comes away with the win here.
Yeah, I don't mind that score range either because I don't know if you watched any of that Michigan-Nebraska game. Set basketball back about 20 years, 49-46. That was an ugly one. Michigan's played in some uglier ones here recently. And if Illinois guards anything like they did against Iowa, maybe that will be that type of game. I'm with you, though. I just don't see it here. I think it's a tough matchup. I think Michigan will out-rebound Illinois. I think Vlad Golden will have a nice game. I think Illinois will have a tough time figuring out how to handle Danny Wolf without Merez Johnson, and they'll probably throw a couple different guys at him. I think Kylan will hold his own on the perimeter, but I think it'll create some problems as soon as you try to exploit that height mismatch. And offensively, I still don't have a lot of trust in Illinois right now, even off that Iowa game. Going against a Michigan defense that has played at a really high level here recently, has a really high-level rim protector, a lot of size. I think Illinois will probably have some offensive lulls in this game that cost them a chance to really get over the top and win this one. So I'm going to go Michigan 75-71. I'll keep it within the 4 points because I'm not going to shy away. Michigan wins every game by 4 or less. So 75-71 Michigan. I think they get it done. And we will be back here after that game to talk about it and then preview the final game of the regular season against Purdue, who, spoiler alert to that game, I actually think Illinois matches up phenomenally with Purdue, and I actually have some optimism about that game. But more on that after this Michigan game, and that opinion is subject to change if Illinois gets blown out and looks like crap against Michigan. I could very quickly change that opinion, but we will talk about that one next time. Anything else from you before we close it out?
I need to see Illinois beat Purdue. I do care if they lose in the NCAA tournament and Big Ten tournament, but they are just so due for a win over Purdue and those guards, Braden Smith and Fletcher Lawyer. And I just think I can't predict it yet. I got to see what happens against Michigan, but I would love to see that.
Yeah, it's about time, especially after last year's home game where Braden Smith did the night ring celebration on your floor as he hit a dagger 3 in your face. Yeah, it's.
I camped out like 7 hours for that.
The problem is there's one guy on this team that actually played in that game, so So it's not like, well, they're going to have that one ingrained in their minds. No one even knows that happened on this Illinois team. That's just the way it is. But the fans certainly do. I think that environment will be pretty awesome to close out the regular season. But we'll preview that game on our next episode. We'll talk about this Illinois-Michigan matchup sometime next week. Make sure you follow along. Shoot us a follow at Champagne on Ice on X. Subscribe to the Field of 68 Podcast Network YouTube channel. All of our episodes stream live there, and find us wherever else you get your podcasts. Everybody, hopefully you all enjoy the game on Sunday.